Hi guys, welcome to Football Unspoken, the home of unique football takes. Now, let's get to the episode. Hi Rob, so today we're going to be talking about goalkeepers, and I'm going to kick us off with a trivia question. So, in your opinion, which of these three goalkeepers have the most Premier League clean sheets? Joe Hart, Shay Given, or Edison?
I'm going to go with my heart on this one because I really hope I want it to be true. Is it Shay Given?
Unfortunately not, it's Joe Hart, and I was really surprised. He's got about 10 or 20 more clean sheets than both Edison and Shay Given, who are both on 112, while Joe Hart is on 127 clean sheets. So I was really surprised to see that because I know City were on the rise when he came in, but they weren't as good as they are now. So I kind of was pretty surprised to hear that. So now the second piece is, this isn't a trivia question, I just want your opinion. Of the Premier League keepers right now, who is your top three?
My personal top three. That's a very good question. Off the top of my head, it's firstly Alisson from Liverpool. He's the best goalkeeper. He's probably the best goalkeeper in the world at the moment. He's ridiculous. After that, I didn't like him. I thought it was a silly buy, but I'm going to have to say David Raya. I think he's had a ridiculously good season. Finally, toss up. I'm going to go Edison. I'm not a particularly big fan of his, but I think his record speaks for himself. So I'm going to go really boring.
I was hoping you would go for something along that top three, because my topic for today is, I think Emi Martinez is the most underrated goalkeeper in the Premier League.
Oh, that's a good shout, to be fair. He doesn't often get in those conversations. I don't know, there's something, maybe it's personality, wise that I don't particularly like him, but he's on the same level of Alisson to me. I think there's something about him that just screams like he's going to make a mistake, and not that he does. It's the same thing as Edison. I meant Edison, I think I said Alisson. Edison always feels like he's going to rush out and do something silly, and I get the same feeling from Emi Martinez, and they both remind me. I'm not sure if you were watching football or if you remember this player, but Fabien Barthez from Man United. He was a French goalkeeper, bald-headed French goalkeeper whose eccentricity on Football Manager was 100 out of 20. They just remind me of him, and I think that's why he kind of slips my mind at least.
Yeah, so the reason I brought this question forward was I was looking obviously at how well Aston Villa had done this season, and there was a lot of Ollie Watkins and other players being banded about how well they had played. And as you kind of were saying in the goalkeeper debate, but just in the general debate about how well Aston Villa played this past season, no one was talking about Emi Martinez. And I think he was one of their first big signings that's kind of transformed that Aston Villa team. And I want to go as far as says I think he's in contention to be the best current goalkeeper in the league. And before I give you a chance to fight me on that, I want to add that, you were talking about Edison and his reputation speaks for himself. Emi Martinez has been up there is in clean sheets. He hasn't won it, but he's been right, near the top for clean sheets for the last sort of 3 or 4 years that he's been at Aston Villa. And he's obviously won the World Cup with Argentina recently. I don't think you get to be Argentina's goalkeeper if you're not up there with some of the world's best.
No, I do tend to agree. I think he realistically slipped my mind, but he definitely should be in that top three. I put him there ahead of Edison, definitely, and pretty much definitely Raya. I think it's between him and Alisson now that you've kind of rebooted my memory on him. I think he's been shafted by the fact that he was a second string goalkeeper. The reason I say this is because when you think about goalkeepers, how many goalkeepers have moved from second string to first string? Have moved from the bench to the starting 11 in any team, whether that's going through a transfer or selling their first choice goalkeeper. It doesn't often happen that the second choice goalkeeper goes on and is better. The closest one I can kind of think in my head to and he wasn't better, but he was a good standard, was Steve Harper. Steve Harper, when Shay Given left, Steve Harper was a very, very good keeper for Newcastle. I think he was quite unlucky to be behind Shay Given because I think he could have and probably should have been England goalkeeper during that time when he was Robert Green and David James. I think Steve Harper was as good, if not better than them. And I think that's probably part of the reason why he's an underrated goalkeeper, because he has stepped out from an Arsenal bench player to technically a step down to an Aston Villa team who are on the rise, but are not as good as Arsenal were. And yeah, he's done fantastically, and he's obviously won a World Cup, and he's pretty much the reason they won a World Cup as well. So, but I think that's probably also one of the reasons why he's not considered off the top of your head, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, so what's been fascinating is in Arteta's tenure as Arsenal manager, he's been heralded for how well he's replaced the goalkeepers. You know, he had Leno. He started with Leno and Martinez, and he sort of replaced Martinez with Leno. Then he replaced Leno with Ramsdale. He replaced Ramsdale with Raya. And I think people on the face of it are what an incredible man, ice cold, you know, replacing all these players. But I look back on it a little bit, and I think, in my opinion, Martinez is probably the best of those four players, and he was the first one to be got rid of. So I don't know if that's actually a bit of a blooper on Arteta's Arsenal CV, in your opinion.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where we had this conversation a while back, you know, where about transfers. How much is it down to clever scouting and actual skill and recruitment, and how much is it down to luck? And at the end of the day, I mean, Martinez was at Arsenal for years, and he had a fantastic run towards the end of the season. I think he was very unlucky to be sold in general. But at that point in time, I don't think anyone in the world would have put any money on him being as good as he is and being the Argentina number one at this point in time. So yes, I think you can call it a bit of a blip, but I wouldn't say it's a horror show, if you know what I mean. It's not an Anthony, you know, it's not an Andy Carroll. It's you've lost a good goalkeeper. You've lost probably the best of the four, like you said there. At the same time, you haven't downgraded massively. If anything, Ryan Martinez, the same goalkeeper, but you know, there's not enough of a difference that you're sitting there going, we've really lost out as an Arsenal fan.
No, that makes sense, and it's a pity that you agreed with me as much as as much as you did. I was kind of hoping you would fight me a bit harder about Martinez being certainly up there as one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. It will be interesting if Aston Villa don't kick on this year, and they've come forth this past year. We saw, for example, with Newcastle this past season, a couple of injuries hit your team to your big players, and that can suddenly mess up your team as well as being in the Champions League. I mean, the amount of fixtures you now have to play and intense fixtures you have to play. So it'll be fascinating to me if Aston Villa have a few big injuries or can't sort of maintain their standards through all of the fixtures, they come eighth or something like that. And now suddenly, if a Martinez does look to move, just say Onana had another bad season at United, they want to get rid of him and bring in a Martinez, for example. That'd be really fascinating. Anyway, I think we've agreed sort of on the topic as a whole. I'm going to...
Before you rush on, because that's actually a fairly interesting point there, because the one thing I was going to say is at this current moment in time, I would definitely put him in that top three for Premier League. But the one thing I will say is it all depends on how long he can carry on at the end of the day. And like you said, if Aston Villa do finish 8th or whatever, and maybe part of it's down to injuries, but at some point you have to look at how many goals you're conceding, and your goalkeeper is a big part of that. So I think the big thing you have with maybe Raya isn't the right player because he's also only been at Arsenal for a season, but you know, Alisson and Edison are two players who have been at the top of the Premier League and at the top of the world for 5-6 years now. You know, they've been the best goalkeepers in the Premier League, close to the best goalkeepers in the world. And I think that's probably why, even though Edison's been injured a lot this season, he's still in that top three.
Yeah.
I think Martinez's goal now needs to be the next 2-3 seasons. If he's at Aston Villa or if he goes to a bigger club, he has to keep the same level of performance to really be considered a true, I don't want to say great because he's won a World Cup, you know, you can't take that away from him. He's a great, but you know, to be really remembered as kind of a legend, he's going to need to not just do what he's doing, but he's going to need to kick on a bit.
Yeah. No, I think we've agreed quite strongly actually about Martinez as a goalkeeper, which is a bit of a pity. But I hope everyone who's taken a listen has enjoyed this episode. Let us know if you think Martinez is the best keeper in the Premier League. And if you don't, let us know why. Love to hear why. Until next time, guys, this has been Football Spoken.